welcome everybody to another episode of the Men's Sexual Mastery Podcast. I am so honored to be joined here today by you, dear listener, and my fellow co-founder and co-host, Ian Hawks. This is your host, Ben Timby. At Men's Sexual Mastery, we are dedicated to awakening, empowering, and aligning every man into his sexual potential. And in today's episode, we're going to be diving into some practical tools that will help you master your sexual energy more fully. So this subject that we're going to be talking about today is one that my co-founder Ian Hawks has been a deep student of, and it's one of his gifts, I would say, he brings to the world in the study of the breath and the importance of the breath in this work. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Hawks, and ask you the question, what's the big deal? Why the breath?
Yeah, thanks for that, Ben. Well, I'll put it like this. If you're listening in, if you have any interest in lasting longer in bed, having greater ejaculatory control or command, having more consistent, stronger erections, being more present with yourself, with your world, with your partner, being more grounded and stable, being more calm and relaxed and rested. If any of these things interest you, then keep listening because the breath has a massive influence on all of these things. And I'd love to talk about that and start to peel the layers back on the why and the how.
You got me sold, bro. Yeah, let's go. Tell me all about it. Let's go.
All right, so let's start by looking at that first piece that I spoke to, lasting longer in bed or having ejaculatory control. If we look at the simple relationship between our arousal and the breath, it's broken down like this. The faster we breathe, the more heightened our arousal will be. And if we look at our ejaculatory response, an ejaculatory orgasm happens as a result of heightened arousal, and then we spill over into ejaculation. So the key to lasting longer is to be in a stable, grounded level of arousal. And a pathway for that, one of the most potent and accessible pathways for that, is conscious breathing. Healthy, natural, long, slow, light, deep breaths. And this is not the typical natural response or behavior that many of us have learned. So the breath is one of the tools that we use to repattern our physiological responses to arousal. And when I say arousal, here in this context, we're speaking about sexual arousal, but we can also think about arousal as nervous system arousal, heightened nervous system responses. The sympathetic nervous system is our heightened arousal response. Parasympathetic nervous system is a more relaxed, grounded, calm response. And shallow, faster breathing relates to the sympathetic nervous system response. Slower, softer, deeper breathing relates to the parasympathetic nervous system. And these things work outside in and inside out. So our breath, when we're in a heightened state of arousal, will naturally start to speed up. It doesn't have to, but that's a learned behavior that many of us, and probably most of us, will experience. We can interrupt that by noticing, oh, I'm breathing faster and more shallow. Let me modulate that a little bit and bring the breath lower in my body and slow it down a little. And as we do this, we can bring ourselves out of that sympathetic nervous system response, or we can turn the volume knob down a little bit and ground ourselves and regulate ourselves. And why this is really important in our ejaculatory response is that the ejaculation happens from a sympathetic nervous system state. So if we are not continually turning that volume knob down on our arousal, we are eventually inevitably going to lead to an ejaculation. So the breath is the gateway, the most accessible gateway to do this. So one really practical tool is breathe slow and low in the body. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about the mechanics of breathing, what that low in the body really means, because there's some important nuances there. But just one quick and easy thing that anyone can try out if you're in a self-pleasure practice or working with a partner in sexual cultivation or lovemaking. Just notice what your breath is doing and continually allow yourself to slow that breath down and to breathe deeper down into the body. And that will naturally help to temper that arousal.
Yeah, I love that. Is just to double click on that. A takeaway, if there's nothing else that you take away from this one podcast, but this, practice expanding your belly when you breathe while you're in love making and actually everywhere in life, and notice what happens. Notice what happens when you, as you said, Hawks, breathing low and breathing deep, or breathing, like you said, breathing slow and breathing low. You'll notice after just a few breaths, things start to shift within you, within your partner, and sometimes even you can feel a shift in the room around you. It's almost like the quantum field is shifting as we are tapping more into that life force energy, that breath. So, yeah, just wanted
Hmm.
to definitely highlight that one for anyone listening. That's a great gateway.
Hmm. Yeah, and I would invite even like another layer of nuance into that. You're speaking to breathing into the belly, expanding the belly. In this work with sexual awareness, sexual mastery, connecting with our pelvic floor is crucial. And not just in the sexual world. Like the pelvic floor is a crucial aspect of our being that's often overlooked. And there's a really commonplace disconnection with the pelvic floor. So I would actually invite us all now to tune into, and if you don't know what the pelvic floor is, it's this web of muscle between our tailbone and our pelvic bone. It sits right at the base of our torso around the perineum. And when we breathe into the pelvic floor, so if we bring our awareness down there, and you could even bring your hand down to your perineum and just make some contact with your perineum there,
AKA taint,
rather, yeah,
in case you didn't know what that is, between your balls and your anus.
yeah, it ain't one and it ain't the other. So bringing a hand to your taint, to your perineum right now, I invite you to breathe in a way where you can feel that perineum, the pelvic floor, expanding and opening down into your hand a little bit. When we're breathing in this way, the belly will naturally extend outwards and expand a little. But if we're only focusing on the belly expanding outwards, it's common that we might actually still be disconnected from the pelvic floor. So our thoracic diaphragm that sits below the rib cage, that's our main primary breathing muscle. And the thoracic diaphragm is going to extend downwards. And in conjunction with that thoracic diaphragm expanding downwards, our pelvic floor, which also serves as a type of a diaphragm, is going to move downwards as well. So these thoracic diaphragm and pelvic floor diaphragm are moving in unison with our breath. As we breathe in, they're going down. As we breathe out, they're coming up. And allowing this connection with the pelvic floor to occur and to be a part of our breathing, our healthy breathing practice, is going to allow more blood flow into that area. It's allowing lymphatic drainage and stimulating circulation, which is going to allow us to be more engorged. So that's one aspect of having stronger, more consistent erections. If there's a chronic disconnection with the pelvic floor, our energy, our life force, our blood isn't reaching that part of the body in the way that it could and in the way that naturally, ideally, it would. So, breathing mechanically, where we're having a diaphragmatic breath and our thoracic diaphragm is moving down and our pelvic floor is also moving down, is really important. And then I'd love to speak to another aspect of erection quality that has to do with breathing. But really quick, just to sprinkle in too, if you're trying this for the first time and you're like, I don't really feel a connection with my pelvic floor, that's normal. It's common. It's not healthy, but it's really common, and it can take some time. Doing Kegels and reverse Kegels are a good way to stimulate more of a connection and start to dissolve some of the numbness there and awaken some of our pelvic floor awareness But for now, we'll just leave it at that. And I'd love to speak to nitric oxide, this fascinating molecule that plays a really integral role in our erection quality. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator, which means that it expands our vasculature, our blood vessels in the body, and it relaxes and softens our muscle tissue, which allows that blood flow to increase. So higher nitric oxide levels are going to increase our circulation. And this has cascading benefits to many aspects of our life, like recovery, just overall health and vitality. And when it comes to sexuality, our erection is dependent on the quality of our blood flow and our circulation. And so, if you didn't already know this, another important and relevant piece around nitric oxide is that medications like Cialis or Viagra act on the nitric oxide pathway. And that's the primary way that they're increasing our erection quality and consistency is through the nitric oxide pathway. So it's a really important molecule for sex and sexual function, and functional breathing in and out through the nose is going to increase our nitric oxide quantity in the body.
All right. Better erections through breathing through the nose. Let's go.
Hmm.
All right. So another one you mentioned was just your presence, your overall state of being just out in the world. And I imagine this is connected with, foreplay and interacting with your partner in areas outside of the actual sexual act. Is that one you want to speak to as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I do, let's all take a slow, deep breath in through the nose and just noticing what influence, what impact does that have on my state, on the quality of my attention, my presence. So the breath is the gateway into consciousness. The moment we become aware of our breath, we become aware of consciousness itself. We awaken in the dream. And all of a sudden, I'm here, I'm now, I am in this body. And presence is it's the greatest gift we have. And it's crucial in relationships, in intimacy, in sex, in sacred sexuality. Our ability to come into presence again and again and again impacts the quality of our interactions and relationships more than anything else that I'm aware of. And so this is where the breath gets really quantum because it's here with us all of the time, every moment. It's available to us to be a pathway, a bridge into consciousness, into presence. And that simple act of bringing awareness to the breath has this quantum effect on the world around us. Because when we become present, we amplify our attention, our energy, our ability to impact the world around us, to break old patterns, to rewrite old ways of being, to choose here and now who I am, how I be in the world. And for me, the journey with the breath has been the most impactful way for me to empower myself. Bringing awareness to the breath brings me into this moment here and now. And I can catch myself going into old patterns, going into a reactive state, whether that's reacting to increasing arousal during sex or whether that's reacting to an uncomfortable conversation or stimulus in my environment or reacting to an emotion that might be arising in me. And the moment I stop and slow down and bring the attention and awareness to the breath, it's like everything else just comes to a standstill and I get to remember who I am and how I'm choosing to be in the world, and then write a new pattern if that's necessary, or just be more here and present to enjoy the pattern that I'm currently living out. And so when it comes to relationships, our ability to bring awareness to the breath and to also repattern the breath if it's becoming shallow and short or dysfunctional, to slow it down. That's going to slow down the heart rate as well. Our breathing rate directly influences our heart rate, and both of our breathing rate and heart rate influence our nervous system state. If we're in a ramped up sympathetic nervous system response, our higher centers in the brain are going offline. We're going more into our reactive, responsive, old patterns and behaviors. And so when we slow the breath down, when we slow the heart down, when we come into the presence of this moment here and now, it allows us to actually choose what's going to be best for this situation.
Yeah, it's so well said, Hawks. I love how you talk about that ability to lead ourselves really to our center, right? And we talk about this all the time in the training that our ability to lead ourselves is going to be directly correlated to our ability to lead in relationships. So it always starts within. Moving outward from there, I would love to add in that this is the way we get into flow state. If we're talking about flirtation or dancing with the feminine, or especially when you start bringing in eye contact, like if we are able to breathe ourselves and then we're able to breathe our partner, that's when she can start to feel us. It's almost this unconscious little signal. Like, and the feminine picks up on this more than we realize, more than we even can conceptualize. She's noticing us, noticing her breath and breathing with her. And it's this devotional act, actually. I think there's nothing more powerful for a woman than that, the gift of that. And oftentimes, when we can start to synchronize our breath within ourselves and then carry that into our partner and say these mirror neurons are acting on one another, the co regulation, the kind of quantum entanglement, if you will, like we're starting to pull her into our field of regulation, that's when flow state can really unlock. And that's when we can really begin to deepen in intimacy, sexual or non sexual. So just wanted to add that in as well.
Yeah, breathing with consciousness breeds trust. I think that's what comes up for me when I'm hearing you speak to that, like breathing yourself and breathing her, and that intuition of the feminine and being able to pick up on the subtleties of our breath, whether she's aware of it or not, whether she cognitively understands, oh, if he's breathing into his belly, he's more grounded, or if he's breathing into his chest, there's an old pattern potentially happening there, and he might be less conscious in this moment. She doesn't actually need to know all of that cognitively. She knows it in a felt sense. And she's picking up on that. Our whole environment is picking up on that. That's where you're also speaking to, like breathing the world. The world around us can feel that, whether we're in our body or not, whether we're in a place of conscious presence or not. Because a man who's present can be trusted because we're good people. And sometimes there's old patterns that aren't serving or might not serve the people around us. And if we're stuck in those old patterns and we don't have the ability to actually choose and respond, then that's when we could become dangerous, because those old patterns can be dangerous and they can be hurtful or harmful. But by bringing our awareness to the breath and breathing down into the pelvic floor, or like into the belly as it's commonly referred to, actually signals the environment around us that, oh, this man is safe. I can trust him. Whether they're cognitively aware of that or not. One of the ways that I would invite anyone listening to experience this firsthand is in an embrace, in a hug, whether it's with your partner or someone else. I find as a man, when I'm hugging a woman, especially, bringing that awareness to my breath and breathing deep down into my body, into the pelvic floor, allowing the belly to expand and to expand into her, into this person that I'm in an embrace with, I feel it every time. I feel something shift in her energy. And more often than not, she will match that breath as you're speaking to. That's where we can begin to breathe her. Because as our belly expands into her, she feels that. And there's just this like softening. Sometimes it's really noticeable, sometimes it's more subtle, but there's a softening because she's feeling that and she's getting these signals and cues from her inner knowing that, oh, like this man is in his body and he's safe and he's grounded right now. And wow, this feels good. And and if it's a slow, deep breath, it's also then reminding her, like, oh, yeah, it would probably feel good to breathe slow and deep into my body right now. And it's like this also this permission field and inspiration to breathe in a similar way that's going to feel really good. And I very often find that as soon as I bring that breath into the belly, there's like another layer of that embrace that opens up that's so nourishing. And it's just like, oh, I could stay here for a while, actually. This feels really comfortable and safe and nourishing. And so that's one thing I would encourage anyone to practice. And that's obviously a more physically felt breath, but what you're speaking to as well, I think of just actually being in the room with someone, we can breathe them in those ways as well. It's all being, all those subtle indications are being picked up on and received.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, even in a business meeting, for instance, if you can sense there's tension in the room, being
Hmm.
able to regulate yourself and dissipate that tension within yourself is what allows the other person to follow suit unconsciously. So, and I see this as a real act of service, actually. And they often
Hmm.
say, I love the saying, I don't know who first said this, but I read once the most powerful person in the room is the most regulated person.
Hmm.
And I find that to be really true.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's what, like we were saying earlier, the ability to come into presence and grounded regulation within ourselves, that's what opens us up to our power. So yeah, I love that quote as well. Also don't know where where it came from, who said it first, but
Shout out to whoever said that.
yeah.
Uh,
I'd love to bring it back to another piece around sex and sexuality and the ways that breath can help us tap into that. This could maybe be the last one for now, and then we could wrap it up. But expanding arousal in the body, which is a crucial aspect of our journey to becoming multi-orgasmic as men, to experiencing non-ejaculatory orgasms, to experiencing heightened sense of pleasure in all areas of our body, which might seem foreign or unusual for someone, but it is possible. And the gateway to that is through the breath as well. Breathing deep into our pelvic floor, touching into that sexual center where that arousal, where that sexual energy and pleasure is first being generated, and then expanding that into our whole body using a practice like the microcosmic orbit. But you don't even need to be aware of the microcosmic orbit or in practice with that specific meditation to do this. You can just breathe down into the pelvic floor and then exhaling and just feeling and visualizing that energy expanding into the whole body. And doing this allows not only the um, heightened sense of arousal buildup and tension that will inevitably lead to an ejaculatory release, if not, um, you know, dealt with or managed in some way. It will dissipate that because we're allowing that energy to move away from the pelvic floor, from the root, but it's also serving to enhance the subtle sensations in every aspect of our body and to nourish every aspect of our body with that potent life force, sexual energy.
yeah. Ooh wee. Some good stuff, man. Great stuff we've been covering today. And yeah, I definitely think we've covered a good foundation of the breath and how it supports us in our sexual development as men. And yeah, I really appreciate all the work you've done in building your knowledge around this, Hawks, and your embodiment. And I know you're also a breathwork facilitator, and just wanted to give you a brief moment to shout out, any of your teachers that have guided you into this work with, really being a specialist in the breath.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. You know, my primary breath teacher, Jeff Sorensen, you haven't met him yet, but you've heard me talk about him lots. And Jeff has a business, a community, an offering to the world called Breath Army. And that's where he teaches people about breath mechanics, functional breathing. And he also does breathwork facilitator training through there as well. And Jeff's attention to detail, his ability to understand the depth of the science behind the breath, and his joy and commitment to being at the forefront of that knowledge base, and then his level of embodiment and also his spiritual connection has been incredibly impactful for me on my journey. And he's really the one who showed me the way of understanding breath in a quantum sense of how deeply it impacts every aspect of our life and how readily and available that is in every single moment of every day. And also leads some powerful transformational breathwork journeys. But more and more, I sense his focus, and it always has been, but even more and more, it's really on the day to day, the sacred mundane of each breath, and how to return to that healthy natural breath. And so, yeah, if anyone's interested in checking his stuff out, you can go over to breatharmy.com, or it might be .ca, and check out his work. He's got lots of free offerings on there. And yeah, he's a really amazing teacher and guide and uncle and friend, and grateful to have him in this life and for all the work that he's doing. So yeah, thanks for that opportunity. And thank you, Jeff, if you're listening.
Yeah, big shout out to Jeff. And yeah, also just a quick shout out to all the brothers in our community who make this podcast possible. Uh, our brotherhood and this continued ongoing work, which is really research as well. It's as much teaching and community as it is research. This work wouldn't be possible without you guys. And, for anyone out there who's listening who is interested in learning more about our trainings, we have daily accountability for every single brother. We have the full online course. We have 6-month training programs. We have one-on-one work. Check us out at menssexualmastery.com. We always say, if you feel called, there's a seat for you at the table, brother. So quick plug on that. And is there anything else you want to pepper in here, Hawks, before we sign off?
Well, we got our next group training coming up on December 2nd. So that's only a couple of weeks away now. Would love to have you there. We still have some seats at that specific table, and that's going to be a potent 6-month journey in brotherhood and the initiation of this work, which is a real joy and honor and privilege and continual learning journey, as you spoke to, for all of us. So yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Have a great